Chris Wallace with WG Financial Group has been helping families here in the Huntsville area plan for a successful retirement. Chris strives to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your retirement goals, creating income in retirement, maximizing your savings, and minimizing taxes. Chris has the strategies you need to help you sustain a successful retirement. Welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
Welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm Louann Fulmer. Today joining me, Chris Wallace of WG Financial Group. He's located right here in Huntsville. Chris is a certified financial planner. Today we're going to cover a topic that affects us all, and that is our country's growing debt and how Congress is handling the matter. It's become an almost annual drama on Capitol Hill. Today we're going to be talking about the problems that we'll potentially face if our country's debt is allowed to continue to grow. And then later, we'll tackle some of your biggest retirement questions. Chris, great to be here with you again.
Yeah, great to be here with you as well, Louann.
All right, well, let's just jump right in and tell us the scope of our national debt situation.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. Lots of debt out there. And if you look at the national debt right now, it's north of $31 trillion. And if we took all of those unfunded liabilities and we divided it amongst all of the U.S. citizens, that would put each of us in debt by an amount close to $500,000. So that's pretty scary.
That is very, very scary. That's too much money for each of us. I can't even imagine that. How did we even get here?
Well, truthfully, America has been in debt since inception. So it's really every administration's fault throughout the course of time that has put us in the position. I mean, our government tends to spend money like a drunken sailor, if you will. Everybody's heard that saying before, but that's how they tend to spend. They just spend with like reckless abandon.
So obviously, our national debt and the way our government spends money has an impact on all of us. But if someone is ready to retire, how can these issues impact them specifically?
Well, first of all, let's just kind of start from an emotional standpoint. Retirement is a very emotional time for a lot of people. And when it comes to retirement, I like to tell people we have these things called glasses. You know, when I hit 40 years old, I had to start wearing reading glasses. So one of the first rules that I tell people as they go to retire is you wear your political glasses when you're looking at political stuff. You take your political glasses off and you put your 401k or IRA glasses on when you look at your retirement stuff. The minute you start trying to combine those two prescriptions of lenses, you're going to start looking at things the wrong way. You're going to tend to get a little bit more emotional, and you're probably going to make some really bad decisions. Now, if you're entering retirement, I think one of the best things you can do is practice exactly what I just said. You know, separate your political and your investment, ideas, and really focus on each individually. Never mix the two. The second thing I think somebody can do is I think they can start to build a plan. I think planning is really important. Just think about a time at the house, maybe your wife or your husband has asked you to do a task and you just, continue to procrastinate. I know that I do that a lot.
You do not.
Yeah, yes, I do. Absolutely, I do. And then anxiety starts to kick in. I know I need to get this done. It didn't happen. So that anxiety starts to, continue to build. And then I know once I get that task done, I tend to feel a lot better. The anxiety relief is there and I'm not as worried about it. It's taken care of. So, input yourself into this situation. Your own story doesn't really matter what it is. Just remember this, when you go into retirement, the level of anxiety is going to be somewhere close to 10x of the situation I just described. It's going to be an incredibly emotional time. So I usually tell people, if you can build a plan, that's going to help you be able to relax a lot more and really focus on what matters most, which is usually spending time with your family, your spouse, your kids, your grandkids. Those things mean a lot to most of the families that we serve here in Huntsville. So building a plan, having that in place really helps that family be able to enjoy the last phase of their life.
So then what are some of the solutions to help get this situation under control? We can't really control what Washington is doing.
Yeah, I think one of the things we have to understand, and this is, I'm not at all saying that this is okay, but their printing press is different than our printing press. There have been times in my life, I've been pretty transparent on the radio about, my life and how, I went into some credit card debt. And I told a story where I I called the credit card company and said, hey, I'm at my limit. Can I have more credit? And they're like, no, you can't. You're at your limit. We can't increase it for whatever reason. Well, it doesn't work that way with the government. They just have a much more liberal way of spending money. And I think we have to come to grips with that as citizens of the U.S. It just works differently. We don't understand it. I don't understand it. I can't explain it, but I know one thing they do is they continue to spend money. Now, two other options they can take is cutting spending. And to me, that's almost laughable, right? Because I know that they're not going to cut spending.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing that could happen, and this is probably a real threat that we need to be ready to face, is that taxes could go up. And if you look back at the marginal rates throughout history, we're in some pretty low tax rates right now, probably historically low if you look at it since inception. So be prepared that, they could cut spending. I highly doubt that. The more likely scenarios, I think we're probably going to see taxes go up.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I remember we've talked before in the past about Ronald Reagan back in the 40s. He could only do 2 movies a year because the tax rate was like 90%.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
Top marginal tax rate used to be really high. I don't anticipate it going back to that level, but I can probably say with a reasonable certainty that taxes are going to go up. And I think that, goes back to why it's important to plan. And I think you should be looking at tax diversification within your investments. So you've got your pre-taxed IRAs, your Roth IRAs, your, brokerage accounts that fall under the capital gains rules. I mean, families need to really be focusing on how they save, and diversify that taxable money.
So part of your retirement process includes tax strategies. And we always say you have to have a plan for retirement, a written plan. So tell us about that whole process, because it's not just tax strategies, obviously. It's income and investing and all that.
Right. It's retirement income, investments, taxes, and estate planning. But let's just focus on the tax portion of it. Part of what we do and where I think we bring a lot of values to family is helping them determine the best place in which to pull money from. So they may have different buckets of money, as we like to call it. So you've got your pre-taxed IRAs, your Roth IRAs, your after-tax accounts, and really pulling in a blended fashion from those different buckets to make it work on your tax return the most efficient for your family.
So really, taxes are one of our biggest concerns in retirement.
It is. It's probably the biggest concern for most families that we work with. Not just running out of money, but how much taxes are we going to pay?
Exactly. All right. Skyrocketing inflation, market volatility, and our nation's debt are just a few of the reasons why people are so worried about their financial security. If this includes you, now is the time to review your retirement plan. Here's how you can contact Chris and the team at WG Financial Group. Stay tuned.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Just when you may want to forget your age, Uncle Sam says not so fast. Knowing your age is more important than ever when it comes to taking your required minimum distributions, or RMDs. Legislation just changed the age requirement, and not accounting for that could impact your retirement plan. It could be key to not overpaying on taxes in retirement. So remember, when it comes to RMDs, age is more than just a number. Before your next birthday, call today to secure a strategy for the RMD age change and your retirement.
You're watching the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Chris Wallace. He's founder of WG Financial Group right here in Huntsville. And Chris is a certified financial planner. Chris, today we are talking about the national debt situation right here in our country. It sounds like the only options for getting our national debt under control are cutting spending and raising taxes, right?
Pretty much. I mean, that's going to be what it's going to take, you know. So cutting spending, let's talk about that for a minute. So when we talk about cutting spending and we're looking at the government budget, we're talking about potential cuts to Social Security and Medicare. There's a lot of people today, roughly around 1/3 of the population is on some form of Social Security. And that would be a major blow to a lot of those families. So cutting those could mean, you know, a big deal. And I would kind of ask the viewer out there, like, what's your backup plan if they do indeed cut Social Security? Now, you and I have talked before. We have a radio show, and I'm of the mindset that I don't think that they're going to do that. But hey, I don't really know. You know, I'm just giving my opinion, kind of based on certain circumstances. But I can tell you, it could be pretty catastrophic if we cut Medicare and Social Security. It could mean a big deal that families wouldn't have the amount of income that they need to buy groceries, and then they wouldn't have the health care that they would need to go to the doctor.
Yeah, that's kind of a scary move, really, for any lawmaker to do, even though they should. They really, maybe not in that area, but there are other areas I think they could cut spending.
Right. The other option would be to increase taxes. And I think that's really scary. And I think one of the things that it always makes me laugh, because you hear politicians when they go to, run for office and they're campaigning, they say just about anything. And it usually revolves around the subject of taxing the rich. But let's be honest, does that really happen? No. When they raise taxes, it has an impact on the majority of Americans out there. So that always kind of makes me laugh. And it seems like that politicians want to turn everybody against the wealthy who own companies who are providing jobs for a lot of us out there today.
Yes, right?
It just always makes me kind of laugh. But that would be the other options. Now, where that could really have a major impact is people that have money in tax deferred accounts. So like your pre-tax 401ks, your IRAs, those types of accounts. When they have to pull those monies out to support their retirement, if tax rates are higher, that's going to mean they're going to pay higher taxes when they pull those monies out. So that could be a potential problem for those families that have a lot of money in pre-tax situations. And I think it's important that as you're working through and preparing for retirement, that you're kind of mindful of that, kind of mindful of where you are in the brackets today, but also kind of forecasting where you might be in retirement. Some of that's kind of crystal ball, right? We don't know exactly where brackets are going to be. We can assume they're going to be higher, but then you also have to take into account that when people typically retire, their tax bracket actually will usually drop a little bit. So I think some of that's somewhat guessing in a way, crystal ball, like I said, but I think you have to do that. I think you have to look at where things are today and where you think you might be in the future.
So, Chris, what would you say to our viewers? What can they do to help preserve their retirement savings?
Yeah, so again, I'm always big about planning, so I always will point back to having a plan. But inside of that plan, I do think it's important to be mindful of fees, right? I think it's important to understand, how much you're paying for investments. I think it's really, really important to know how much you're paying your advisor. You'd be surprised how many times I've been asked, Chris, how much do you charge? And so I'll go over my fee structure and then I'll say, hey, by the way, what are you paying? Oh, I really don't know. It's always just kind of, again, just makes me laugh. They're asking me, how much do you charge? And they don't even know what they're currently paying. So I think it's really important that you're mindful of your fees. I think you do, and this is important, as we just talked about this when it comes to taxes, you have to know where you are in the tax brackets. Where you are in the tax brackets can really tell you how to pull money, how often to pull money, and what type of account to pull it from. So being mindful of tax brackets, and then also understanding your risk. Risk is really important. When we're young, it doesn't matter. Gas pedal all the way down, never look at it, feed it, max it out, never think about it. But when you start getting to that window of about 5 to 7 years out from retirement, you have to start really looking at your risk, because what if you're super aggressive and the market does what it did in 2008? Chances could be that you may have to work longer. So you want to start being mindful of your risk to make sure that you're taking, care of your portfolio and not losing a whole lot. That also goes for the first 5 to 7 after retirement. So there's kind of a window of time, 5 or so years on either side of retirement, that you really got to pay attention to that so that you don't take a big lump on the forehead from the market and have to work longer, or maybe even, have to go back to work. When you first retire, there's something called sequence of returns. Okay, so let me kind of put this in perspective. When you're working and you're younger and you're just filling up those accounts, so you're essentially pushing money into those accounts, you're not thinking about it, you're not looking at it, just like I said earlier. But when you get to retirement, there's going to be a really good probability that you need to take some of that money out. The minute you start pulling money out of that portfolio, you introduce something called sequence of returns, or sequence risk, as some people know it. And that's essentially pulling money from a down portfolio. See, it doesn't matter as much when the portfolio is going up. But if you're pulling money out of a portfolio while the market is actually taking the portfolio down, it makes it harder for that portfolio to recover and, get back to the balance of where you started. See, when you weren't, retired and you were pushing money into that savings account, if it dropped, no big deal.
Right.
It just bounced back. And you could say, okay, I averaged 7%. Well, you could still average 7% in retirement, but because you're pulling money out of the portfolio, it causes that other problem called sequence of return. To me, Luann, honestly, that's probably one of the biggest risks out there for retirees. Most retirees say, I'm worried about healthcare. I'm worried about running out of money. I'm actually worried about you pulling from a very volatile portfolio, because that, coupled with taxes, can literally destroy your retirement.
There's just so much to think about with retirement. All of these things, we get on the subject of taxes, and then, then we go down another rabbit hole with investing and everything. So many risks for the retiree that I just can't imagine doing it myself.
Yeah, there is. On one of the shows, I talked about the Rubik's Cube.
Yes.
I've heard a lot of advisors call retirement like the puzzle, the jigsaw puzzle. And yeah, that kind of fits. But if you think about a Rubik's Cube, when you start turning that Rubik's Cube and you're trying to get that yellow side all yellow, you don't know what you're doing to that red or green side on the other side of the cube. And that's a lot like in retirement. You may think that you're making the right decision, but some people don't understand the impact that it's going to have on the other side of that cube if they're not careful. And I think that's why having an advisor or working with an advisor or a planner that specializes in retirement is really important, because they can help you, step over those potholes so that you don't step in them. They can guide you along the way during one of the most critical times of your life.
You always give such valuable information. Thank you so much, Chris. Coming up next, Chris answers some of your biggest questions about Social Security and taxes. Stay with us. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show. We'll continue right after this.
Congratulations, you did it! You worked hard and saved for retirement, but now you have questions. Could my taxes increase? How will I cover my expenses? Will my income last? You need a strategy to help make sure your hard-earned money goes the distance in retirement. That's why we're offering this free guide designed to help you determine if your nest egg can withstand the challenges of a 21st century retirement. Longer lives, increasing healthcare costs, and taxes are just a few of the possible risks to your income. Get the guide today and take the first step to help your money last in retirement. There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. Planning on passing your IRA to your children or grandchildren? That could be more of a burden than a blessing due to the recently passed SECURE Act. This legislation eliminates the stretch IRA, which means now when loved ones inherit an IRA, they could also be inheriting a huge tax bill. Now's the time to sit down with a trusted advisor to find out how you can maximize the legacy you want to leave. Call today to find out how the SECURE Act could affect you and your retirement plans. Don't let taxes dictate your legacy. Call now and leave a legacy you feel secure about.
You're watching the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
Now it's time to get to some of the questions that you have for Chris today. So, Chris, you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
He hasn't heard these at all yet, so these are going to be right here on the fly. Here's the first one for you. This is from Carl in Huntsville. Carl in Huntsville says, the idea of a big market drop makes me really uncomfortable now that I'm within a few years of retirement. I'm also worried about taxes. How should I start repositioning my assets?
Yeah, so this is going to be kind of a tricky question, because I don't exactly know how old he is. He didn't tell us how old he was, so there's some other things that I would need to know. But just kind of like I was saying earlier, I think when the closer you get to retirement, especially within that 5 to 7 year window, we're going to want to start looking at risk, and how much you need to reposition really depends on several factors. What's your Social Security claiming strategy going to be? Does he have a pension? How much does he have saved in assets? And really, how much money is going to go out the door in terms of expenses and those things that you want to do in retirement? So once you understand those things, then you could start to talk about how much you might need to be reposition to maybe safer securities, maybe something like the bond asset class or something like that. Most people say go from stocks to bonds. So, if you want to shift more to bonds, a lot of that depends on, how the other situation or the other pieces of your retirement plans are going to play out for you as well. So I can't give him an exact answer, but I can tell him what he needs to do is just come in, give us a call, set up a consultation. Let's talk about your retirement situation, and let's actually build out a plan. And then I can help him determine exactly how he needs to reposition.
Exactly. That's the best thing, because you can customize a plan to the person that comes in and sees you. Everybody's different.
Everybody's different. Every family's different. Every individual is different.
Yeah. This next question is from Andrea in Mooresville, and she says, what's your best advice for someone who is 10 years away from retirement and doesn't want to make any big financial mistakes?
Yeah, so I'll use myself as an example here. My wife and I'm 50 years old, and my wife is a little younger than I am. And so basically what we have decided is there are no more stupid mistakes moving forward. We're too close to retirement. And, for us to make a big mistake now, it could be catastrophic. So I would, basically say to this individual, you're 10 years out. It's the perfect time to establish a relationship with a financial planner, whether that's us or someone else in the area. Get yourself plugged in, establish a relationship, start building out that plan, because at 10 years out, I still feel like you have some time to correct some things. Now, if you wait until 1 year out from retirement, it's never too late to build a plan. But I can tell you the flexibility, the closer you get into retirement, the flexibility starts to go away a little bit. So I feel like 10 years is a really good window to start, developing that relationship, developing the plan, start forecasting where you think the money's going to be in retirement, what income sources you're going to have, start practicing like you're in retirement. I think that's a real good thing for people to do is start practicing, thinking like, okay, I got this amount of money. This is what I'm going to try to live off of in retirement. Can I do that now? So start practicing that right now.
Yeah, great idea. Well, Andrea sounds like she's on track then, planning 10 years ahead. That's
she's asking
excellent.
she's asking the right questions for sure.
Here's a question from Kent in Greenbrier. We've been working with someone, but we aren't sure if we're getting the right guidance to help protect from market risk, taxes, and inflation. What should we do?
Yeah, so Kent, actually I love the name. My best friend's name is Kent.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
maybe it's him. Is he in Greenbrier?
No, he's not in Greenbrier. That's how when you said Kent, I was like, wait, is it? But it's not him. So yeah, I think it's always a good idea to get a second opinion, right? So if you're going to have like a major surgery, let's say it's going to be heart surgery. If it's me, I'm probably going to go to 2 or 3 doctors and make sure that I'm getting the same advice from all 3. Now, the one thing to be wary of here is that if you go to 3 different financial planners, you're probably going to get 3 different opinions. I think what you're looking for in that situation when you're talking to 3 different planners is you're looking for common advice there. Maybe not specific, like maybe advisor A didn't tell you exactly what advisor B said and the same with C, but what you're looking at is, are they singing in the same tune or are they in the same ballpark, however you want to say that. I think that's the thing that you're looking for. So I do believe that second opinions are a great idea. And then I think with each planner, you just address those questions that you just asked us on the show and then make sure they're giving you, advice that's in the same ballpark.
All right, our last question comes from Tim in Huntsville, and he says, I inherited an IRA from my father a few months ago, but I have no idea what to do with it. Where do I start?
Yeah, so the first thing you want to know is that the inherited IRA rules changed in 2020. And I think that's a big deal because let's go back pre-2020. And when we say 2020, I think our minds automatically go to COVID, right?
Exactly.
But the Secure Act 1.0 happened at that time frame as well. And on the financial side of things, that's a big deal because some rule changes took place. And the inherited IRA, when you inherit an IRA as a non-spouse, and I'll keep the rule very basic here, non-spouse IRA has to have that IRA empty within 10 years. So by the end of that 10th year, the IRA has to be completely spent out, all the taxes paid, and it has to be taken completely out of that IRA status. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you understand the rules and know the time frame that you're going to have to deal with in order to take that money out of that IRA. Now, this should be set up in an inherited IRA. My advice to our client base is to take a little bit each year, because literally, if you wait until the very end of the 10th year, that's going to be a pretty big tax bill, in that specific year. Now, the other thing I'll kind of note here is everybody's situation is different. So there may be a reason to wait 4 or 5 years before you take any money, because you may have a big salary or something in the first few years, so you may want to defer and wait. The other thing to note here, and he didn't tell us this, was if his father had already started taking required minimums. Now, if his father started taking required minimum distributions, he has to continue taking some distributions as well. That's a real important question as well. So what I would say in this situation here, again, like we would tell most of the viewers out there, this is what we do. We sit down with the family, like this individual, they pose a question, and then we go over their entire situation. We're looking at everything from income, the investment mix, their tax liabilities that they're going to incur as they go through retirement. We're even going to poke around in the estate planning area. I'm not an attorney. I don't give legal advice, but if I sense there could be some sort of deficiency in that area, I have referral sources, that I can refer out to take care of the estate planning. Also wrapped in that estate planning is the legacy aspect. So, just like in his situation, he inherited an IRA. We may want to talk about that so that his kids, inherit assets in the most tax efficient manner, so they're not having to put as much thought into this situation like we're going to have to do with this gentleman.
Such great insights as usual, Chris. Thank you so much. If you have a question, you can visit WGFinancialGroup.com. We just might use one of your questions on a future show. And don't hesitate to act on the information that you've heard today. It never hurts to call, even if it's for a second opinion. Don't wait. Call now. For Chris and the team at WG Financial Group, I'm Luann Fulmer. Have a great day and an even better retirement.
This program was sponsored by WG Financial Group, where your retirement matters.